We're starting with Jonathan Jacobs today. He likes to call himself digital native. He was born and raised with cell phones, laptops, Facebook, and Twitter. He uses his local knowledge of digital marketing to help business navigate the brave new digital world. In his role as Chief Marketing Officer of Digital Natives Group, he leads his company's sales, publicity, and marketing efforts. He holds degrees in both marketing and operations management from Georgetown University. Wow, that's impressive. Welcome, Jonathan.
Thank you very much. Can everybody hear me all right? I'm not used to working with microphones, so this is a big step for me today. I don't know if everybody got one, but we have some folders in the back of the room. And I'm actually going to pass them all back because I know I got here after some people checked in. And if you don't get one, again, there are plenty more in the back there. So just for starters, just to kind of get an idea of the audience I'm working with today, could you just raise your hand if you have a website for your business? Okay, if you can put your hands down. Can you raise your hand if you have a smartphone? Okay, put your hands down and raise your hand if you have an iPhone. Okay, so it seems like it's about a 50-50 split between the iPhone users and the Android users when it comes to smartphones. And then the last question I want to ask is, how many of you think I am young enough to be your child or grandchild? Okay, that's always interesting to see. It's kind of the gorilla in the room, and it's nice to know that it's on everybody else's mind too. So I know you're not here today to hear about my business, but before we get into the heart of the matter, which is about QR codes, mobile apps, and mobile websites, I want to explain a little bit about why you should even bother listening to me today. So my name is Jonathan Jacobs. I'm the Chief Marketing Officer of Digital Natives Group. What is Digital Natives Group? Where did Digital Natives Group come from? Well, traditionally I have my partner Ben here with me when we're giving this presentation, but I'm going to have to tell his little family history story myself today. Ben's grandmother, around the turn of the millennium, back in 1999-2000, she got her first computer. For her, it was revolutionary. She thought it was the greatest technology she ever received in her life. She got her first email account. I believe it was at Hotmail or MSN. I'm not exactly sure. But she set this up and she received a really great email that she wanted to share with Ben. She thought it would be something that her nephew would really enjoy reading about and finding more information about. So what she did was forward it to him the only way she knew how. She printed it out, put it in an envelope, and a week later, Ben got that in the mail. I think we can all agree that when we talk about forwarding an email, this is not what we really think about. That's because Ben's grandmother was a digital immigrant and we're digital natives. We have a generationally imbued sense of what these technologies are and how to apply them both for personal use and for business use. More formally, Digital Native Group is a full-service digital agency focused on putting our clear-nighted insights to work for your business. We're your local guide through the brave new digital world. So what exactly is it that we've done? Well, we specialize in two areas. The first is in the field of higher education. In that vertical, we've created two proprietary software packages. One of them is a mobile communication platform for school districts and institutions, and the other is a platform for co-curricular clubs on campus. What I'm showing you here are some screenshots from the Baruch College app, as well as the upcoming app for the Smithtown Central School District here on Long Island. And these app screenshots here for Baruch are actually out of date. We're going to be piloting and releasing the second version of this sometime within the next month. Now, the Baruch College app is actually one of the most popular apps within the higher education vertical in the App Store in iTunes, and it received some phenomenal reviews as well. So it's something that's really a tentpole of what we do. We're very proud of it. And also, we do a lot of small business and medium business size consulting. We're working with a semi-famous celebrity pizza chef in New York City. We're helping to revolutionize what the cookbook is. Personally, as an aside, I think where ebooks are going today and the future of publishing is a very interesting side topic for a whole another session about this. But we're working with him to turn the traditional cookbook into an experiential, informative app that takes it just away from the cooking, but now it's about the whole experience of food and eating. So I want to get started. Let's get away from everything about my business and let's talk about some numbers. This number is 55. It's one larger than 54, one less than 56. Moving on. Now, come on, I wouldn't put that in here if there wasn't a purpose for me to tell you about 55%. What 55% represents is the percentage of Americans who currently have a smartphone. That number skews towards those individuals who are 18 to 34, and it's split about evenly between men and women. The two genders are adopting smartphones at the same rate. This number is very interesting because about 2 years ago, it was predicted that at the end of 2012, smartphone adoption in the United States would only be at 50%. We're now halfway through the year, and this number is already a few months old. We're now more than halfway through the year, and we're already well over 50%. And it's actually, I was chatting with somebody earlier, and they're already predicting that by 2015, smartphone adoption is going to be at nearly 100%. So we know that this is where the technology is going. Another number I want to share with you is 71%. This is the percentage of smartphone users who say that after experiencing a brand, whether it's by hearing about it from a friend, whether it's by watching an advertisement on TV, reading something about it in the newspaper, they say that the first thing they do is go to their mobile device and search it. So the 1B interaction they have with your company after the 1A, which is first hearing about it, is to go to their mobile device and find out more information about it. So the question that we are trying to answer today is, well, what am I providing there for these individuals? A few more numbers before we get to what those solutions could be. 54% of iOS web traffic, that's web traffic generated on iPhones, iPod Touches, or iPad devices. 54% of that web traffic is generated to search versus 36% of the internet average. So that's what's happening on your laptops and your PCs. By the way, I should note I'm borrowing these 3 slides from a friend at HubSpot. What we know here because of that is that most of the web traffic generated on mobile devices that use iOS is generated towards search. It's about finding out information. Whether that information is about a product or solution or about a particular problem they're having is not relevant here, because that 50% of searches is time that you could be producing yourself in a Google search result and a Bing search result that people will find out more information about your business. 2 more numbers. 60% of consumers do product or service research several times a month via a mobile device. I don't like this because I know myself that I do this sort of search several times a day. I've already done it about 6 times today, and I've only been up for about 3 hours. The first time I hear about a brand, the first thing I do is I go to my phone and I look it up. And whatever information I find out there is my first impression. In many cases, it's my only impression, because the information provided me there is not what I'm looking for. The last number, and what I think is most important, 9 out of 10 mobile searches lead to user action. More than half of that lead to a purchase. That means that mobile closes the deal, mobile generates the deal. Mobile can do this as an entirely independent solution from your own business. This can get somebody to fill out that contact form. This can get somebody to request a quote from you about maybe some camera repair, like it does for one of our clients. Mobile is a fantastic solution, and now it's time to find out how we can put that to use for your business. The first solution we're going to talk about is QR codes. They've really experienced exponential growth over what I would put it the past 18 to 24 months. A QR code is a quick response code. It's a 2D barcode. Traditionally, what we see here on packaging is a 1D barcode. Quick response, and it contains more information that can be accessed faster than in a traditional barcode. But before I get into this presentation about it, I just want to tell you quickly my own experience with QR codes that I think really drove home for me why it is that QR codes are important for business. I love Black Friday. Every year I get up at 2 or 3 in the morning and I go out to Target and Best Buy, whatever it is. I don't know whether it's the people watching or I'm really just interested in finding a deal because my parents raised me to be a good penny pincher. But I love going out and seeing what the stores have to offer. So this year I went to Walmart probably about 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and the one thing I wanted to buy myself this year was one of those streaming TV players like the Apple TV devices, but I didn't want to buy the Apple TV, it was a little too expensive. Something else that operates in that sphere is the Roku player, if you know what that is. But I went to Walmart and I'm looking around to find a product that I could use, and I found one. It was on sale for $54.99. I was really excited about it, but I'm looking at it and I'm saying, you know what? This is a low price because I bet there are going to be accessories they're going to make me buy, and it's going to take a while to install, and I'll have to wait on the helpline, and at this point I may as well just buy a new DVD player and forget the whole thing. But I'm playing around with it, I'm looking at the packaging in my hand, and then I see on the side there's a QR code. It said scan here for more information. While we'll talk about why that's not necessarily a good thing to write in a second, I said, okay, I am interested in this device, let me find out what it is they want to share with me. So I scanned that barcode, and mind you, the question in my head now is currently about installation and why this is going to be a thing that I shouldn't actually buy. Well, I scanned that QR code, and it didn't take me to the company's website, it didn't take me to a customer testimonial, it took me to the installation instructions for that device. So now I knew that in 3 simple steps, I could install this device. It required a cable I already had in my house, and I knew that I was smart enough to be able to follow these instructions and know that I wouldn't need to call a helpline. Well, I decided then on that moment to buy that device, and I now have it installed in my home. So that's the power of the QR code. When you aren't there to actually do that personal selling at the point of sale, this can close the deal for you. Let's talk a little bit more about the technology behind it, what exactly exists in what seems like this random series of shapes and black squares. There are a few different components to the QR code. The first is the finder pattern. Those are these 3 big squares we see here in the upper left, upper right, bottom left-hand corner. This is what identifies that this is a QR code when you scan it. It says, hey phone, how's it going? I'm a QR code, let's chat. The next thing we have here is in the bottom right-hand corner. This is what's called the alignment pattern. The way I think it's best to explain this is think about if you're reading a book. You know you need to read it like this. But if you turn the book like this, you're able to tell based on the way the text is, oh, I need to turn my head so I can read that the right way, or oh, let me turn the book back. That's what this alignment pattern does. It's sort of like that anchor that says to the phone, hey, make sure that this portion is over here so that you're reading this the right way, or else the phone wouldn't be able to process the information here. Then you have the timing pattern. Think of this as sort of the geolocation, the GPS coordinates of everything else that's included in this code. This is what tells the phone, hey, this bit of information's over there, this is over there, go check that out, it's in the bottom right-hand corner over here. This is what gives the order to the madness, if you will. Format information, this just has a little bit of the biographical data about the QR code, and what I mean when I say that is it includes things like error information. This is very technical stuff that the average person who makes a QR code does not need to worry about. Version information, this is a QR code technology is constantly changing. QR code generators are constantly updating. This just identifies what version of QR code this is. This is not a problem for business owners. Everyone who has a smartphone that has a QR code reader is constantly updating that application. When they get a notification, it needs to be updated. And that update will contain the update to make it capable of reading any code changes. And then finally, when they ask you where's the beef of the QR code, you're looking at all this red information here. This is the encoded data. This is the meat of it. This is the heart of the matter. This includes whatever it is that you're trying to send the user to. Traditionally, you should be aware that you might say that, oh, this QR code takes you to a picture. This QR code takes you to a video. QR codes do not contain pictures in them. They contain text or they contain links that take people to that information. Two more things to know about QR codes. The first is that whenever you put it out there on some sort of marketing or promotional piece, you need to leave a quiet zone around that QR code of 2 to 3 pixels on every side. The reason for that is that if you have too much clutter around it, too many other images, too many other things that have a similar contrast that are bumped up right next to this code, the phone's not going to be able to pick it out. Or it will be able to pick it out, but it's not going to be able to pick out where it starts and stops. And no one's going to be able to read that code. The second thing to know, and what makes QR codes kind of exciting for business, is that you can keep the black parts darker, but you can play around with the color. You have about a 30% range that you can play around with the contrasts in here, so you can change the coloring and still make it legible for a phone to read. We'll show you some examples in a few minutes of some brands that have used this in a really fun and interesting way. So what's the value of a QR code? Why is it that I'm here talking about it? What makes it so important? Well, what it really is that it adds a digital layer to the physical world. In my typical shopping experience, I couldn't have found out that information about installation. It would have created a bigger package, or you would have needed to tape a sheet of paper onto the box, or you would have had to hire somebody to run that point of sale display in the store. But you slap that code on the packaging, and now I have access to a whole other world of information I wouldn't have thought to try to go to while I was in the store. You're able to add a whole other layer onto the shopping experience that wasn't there before and now make it more 360 degree. QR codes are really exciting because they can do a lot of things that people don't realize they're capable of doing. Traditionally, you just think about it as, hey, scan this, it'll take you to my website. We're going to talk about why I can't stand that in a few seconds, but first let's talk about what it is that a QR code can actually do. First option, you can embed a calendar event in a QR code. Let's say you run a retail location and you're going to be having a sale of 20% off on Friday, July 13th. And you're going to be doing a mailing about it 2 weeks in advance. You're going to be doing every door direct mail through the US Postal Service. Well, you can put a QR code on that promotional piece and embed in that the date of the sale. Let's again say it's July 13th, so that I as the user can go scan that and now import a calendar event into the calendar on my phone, and I'll get a reminder when I wake up that morning, hey, it's July 13th, I better go swing by Billy's store for that 20% off sale. So it's a great way to provide a secondary reminder to individuals about an upcoming event at your location. A second use is that it can include pre-formatted email or text, so that I as a user could scan it and then automatically generate an email that I would just click send and send to you from my email account. One application I've seen of this is an individual who was trying to get their blog off the ground, and what they did was they created a QR code that they carried around in their back pocket because they knew that if someone walked away from them when they were chatting, they wouldn't remember to go check out their blog, but in that moment they may be able to convince them to look at it. So what they did was they carried around this QR code, had individuals scan it, and then when that person scanned it with their smartphone, an email was generated that said, "Dear such and such, I really am interested in your blog and I'd like to subscribe. Please sign me up at this email address." That user, all they had to do was hit send, and then they became subscribed to that person's blog. A third bit of information you can impart is text. You can just input a block of code in there, whether it's a note or just a fun piece of information. A personal use that I do for that is that we run a scavenger hunt in New York City every year, and this year 5 of the clues were QR codes that had text in them that users had to scan and then find out what it was they were looking for. A fourth thing is a GPS location. Let's say you've moved offices, let's say you are having a sale, but you don't think people are going to know how to get there. You can put in the coordinates for your office location in that QR code. It'll get pulled up in whatever map functionality a user has on their phone, and then they can generate directions to get there. A fifth thing is contact information. For those of you that do have a folder, you may have seen it on my business card, which is on the lower right-hand side. There's a QR code on all of our cards at our company. And you might think, oh, that probably takes me to his homepage. No, that QR code actually, if you scan that, that will import my contact information into your phone. So now you don't need to worry about losing it. I don't need to worry about you mistyping my number and then never being able to reach me. All you have to do is scan that and add to contacts. And I think it's also a great way for businesses that are trying to green or trying to cut back on costs. You don't have to run off 500 cards every few months. You can run, I know people who run off 15 to 20, they laminate them and carry them around. And every time they meet a new person, they just ask that individual to scan it, and then they take the card back and keep it with them. The sixth thing that you can include is links. You can direct people to any URL on the web. I should note that QR codes are persistent, so make sure whatever link you're sending someone to is somewhere that it's going to be pertinent for at least 1 to 2 months after you initially release that QR code. QR code do's and don'ts. Very important things to think about if you are interested in getting into QR codes for your business. The first is so incredibly important that I can't stress it enough, particularly as it relates to directing people to things on the web. Make sure that whatever you're having them scan is mobile friendly. I find few things more frustrating than getting a really great use of a QR code in the mail and then scanning it, and it takes me to a website that was not optimized for mobile devices. This is one of those situations which it's better off not using the technology at all than improperly using it, because then you become a business that instead of me just being neutral towards, I talk about in a negative situation. A big thing here is when they when Flash became no longer accessible on mobile devices, when mobile Flash was killed off. A lot of businesses had websites that were mobile Flash enabled, or I should say Flash enabled, and you would need mobile Flash to look at them. And now I'm scanning QR codes that were taking me to websites that I couldn't even look at on my device. The second thing, be creative, be fun, be different. Everybody thinks that a QR code is going to take them to the same thing. Disrupt that, change that up, lead them to a different piece of information than they expected, or lead them to a piece of information that they thought they would need but wouldn't get and is actually incredibly helpful. And the third thing is be specific and relevant. A lot of what we talk about with clients when we do anything with digital or mobile is that you know 8 times out of 10 what the situation is going to be in which somebody encounters your digital or mobile advertising. You know that when they're looking at mobile, it's on a mobile device. They might be in their car, they might be at home, they might be in your store or a competitor's store. But with QR codes, you know when they're going to see it because you know where you put that QR code. You know that if you put it on a piece of promotional material about, let's say, the linen selection in your home goods store, why would you create a QR code that doesn't take them to the linens e-commerce page on your website? Why would you just take them to your general home page? Make sure that whatever you're doing is relevant and it speaks to the content on which that QR code is embedded with. QR code don'ts, I'm going to skip the first one and come back to that in a second because that one is very important to me. The second, be smart about where you're placing your QR codes. 2 quick stories. Our office is based in Westchester, I'm based out of Long Island, and we have a lot of clients we deal with in the city. So I'm constantly riding Metro North, LIRR, and the subway. The MTA is my biggest vendor somehow. But I see, probably more than anywhere else, the subway is where I actually still read ads today, subway and magazines. And on the subway, I have seen so many QR code ads, which you think, oh, that's a great idea. I have a captive audience. Let me put a QR code up there. Here's the thing that we all know about the subway. It's underground. And what we also know about our phones is, God forbid, we have service anywhere, especially underground. So how am I supposed to take my phone, scan a QR code that's taking me to usually web-based information and find that while I'm underground? Again, this is one of those situations where you're better off not using it at all, because now you become a punchline when I tell this story again to customers and clients and individuals and audiences like yourself. And the third one, the second story here is, I believe it's on 95 coming south from New England, outside New Haven or Bridgeport, I forget which one. There's a billboard for a mobile app whose name I don't want to mention because I can't remember it off the top of my head and I don't want to say the wrong one. But it's a very nice billboard. It's really interesting, and in the bottom right-hand corner of it, they have a QR code. I'm on the highway. They have a billboard with a QR code on it. Unless that QR code is taking me to a website where I can file for a claim for the ticket I'll get while driving while using my phone, or to pay the increase in my insurance that I'm going to pay when I get in the accident because I'm paying attention to my cell phone and not the road, I'm really not interested in taking the time out to scan that. That is not a good place to place a code. More importantly, it's not large enough to actually scan from a mobile device while you're driving. How it's over there, I'm over here. How am I supposed to read that with my phone when it renders an image that's about that large? Phone actually can't see what's going on. This relates to the third thing, which is make sure that the code is not unreadable. Don't make it too small, don't make it too big. Those images, those words are completely relative. It's something you have to just try on your own once you've created it and once you're putting it into your marketing collateral. And like I mentioned before, you can play around with the colors, but playing around with it like this won't work, because what you've done here is reduced all the contrast to a minimum. So now the phone can't separate between the encoded data and just the white space behind, or the encoded data and the format information. And that's a big problem. The most important QR don't. Do not give me a QR code that takes me to your homepage. I can't stress this enough, so I'm going to say it 2 more times. Do not give me a QR code that takes me to your homepage. Do not give me a QR code that takes me to your homepage. And yes, I'm very aware that the QR code on the back of our folders takes you to our homepage. Because when we made these, we were changing our website, and that's the only link that we knew was going to be persistent. So I did break my own cardinal rule there, and I'm very aware of that. But do not give me a QR code that takes me to your website. When I scan a QR code, it's an expression of interest. I'm saying to you, okay, I'm going to buy into this for a few more minutes or a few more seconds. Show me what you got. So you have pretty much a virtual private network through the internet, a little tunnel with which you can take me and direct me to whatever piece of content you think it is that's going to make me a viable sales lead for you or make me now a paying customer. Why would you take me to information I could have found on my own? Why would you take me to information accessible to anyone else who's interested or uninterested as a customer? Take me somewhere that's going to make me feel like, oh, you know what, I'm glad I did this, because now this took me where I wanted to go. This brings me to the information I need to find. I can find your homepage. I can go to Google and type it in. Heck, I could probably, in the time it takes me to open my QR code reader app, get this scanned right, and then load the web page, I can go to Safari and type in your business name into the search tab and find it myself. That's just a waste of time, and it's really not a great use of what's essentially a free resource. A couple of the best that I want to point out to you. The first one here on the left is from the Red Cross. This came out in the wake of the Japanese tsunami / earthquake. And I really like this QR code for a number of reasons. The first one, as you can see, they integrated it into their logo. They did a great job with that. The second thing is that this code takes you not to the Red Cross homepage, but it takes you specifically to the page at which you would make a donation to Red Cross Relief for Japan. I don't have to go to the page and then sort through it. I'm already interested in making a donation if I said I'm going to scan that. So they take me to the donation page. And the other thing, I don't think you're able to make this out from your seats, but what they've done inside this code and the surrounding images is they've embedded images that relate to this crisis. They have the picture of Japan right here. They have a first aid kit. They have a doctor. They have a crutch. They have a wheelchair. They have a stethoscope. All these things that relate to the issue at hand, and I think they did a fantastic design job with that. The second one here on the right is from Polo Ralph Lauren. Obviously, they've made it blue, and they have their very well-known logo in here. And this was included in a piece of promotional material, I believe, that was about their outfitting the U.S. Olympic team for 2012 here over in London. And again, this QR code did not take you to Polo's homepage. It took you to their homepage for their collection about the U.S. Olympic team. Finally, there's one more I'd like to point out to you, and it's very close to my heart. That would be the QR code on the back of your folders. I do very much like the way it was designed, and I will say I did not design it myself, so I'm not patting myself on the back. But that's what I have to tell you today about QR codes. Because the other two topics kind of collude a little bit, and there's some discussion, there's a lot of interplay between them, I want to do a brief break right here to see if anybody has any questions about QR codes before I continue. Yes, sir.
How do you scan a QR code?
So there are multiple free QR code reader apps in both the App Store on iPhone and in the Android App Store. The one that I recommend is Red Laser. There's also Scan, which is another app. They're all free. They are all free, by the way. Red Laser is my favorite. That's available both on Android and iOS.
Is that with a Z or an S?
S.
Thank you.
But now you made me nervous, so I'm going to check.
Okay.
And then was there another one?
Yes, Scan.
And what is
S-
Red Laser?
Those are QR code readers.
Oh, readers.
Yes.
What
That's
about creating them?
So that's a great question, and I'm glad somebody asked. Creating a QR code, entirely free. Entirely free.
And you
Do-
repeat red laser?
Laser.
With
Laser.
an S?
Laser.
L-A-S-E-R.
Yeah. Creating QR code is entirely free. If anybody tries to make you pay for it to just generate a simple black and white QR code like this one, tell them to run for the hills and you're not going to give them a dime. You can type in QR code generator into any search engine and they will bring you to pages and pages of free QR code generators. And mind you, after that initial generation, you don't need to have a relationship with that provider because these are persistent codes. All you have to do is save the image and then put it on whatever format you need it with, put it on whatever marketing materials you need. The point at which QR code might become something you end up paying for is if you want to play around with the image here like the Red Cross and Ralph Lauren have done. Because once you are starting to manipulate these colors, once you do want to put it inside some other sorts of materials, then you want to work with somebody who's had experience designing QR codes or at least knows what the quote-unquote rules and regulations are for them, because you don't want to create something that's not going to scan. And at that point, it would probably just become paying for the couple of hours of design costs that the designer would use on that. In the back.
What information do you have to have ahead of time to go to that site, go to that one of those sites and have the code made for your company?
So let's say in my situation on our business cards where we have our contact information put on that. Here's what I need to have: my name, my phone number, my business address, my email. If I want it to go to a link, I need to have the link. It's a very, very simple and easy to use technology. Does that answer your question, or?
I think so.
Okay.
And so you said you can go to, there are quite a few companies
Yeah.
that do this online?
You can we used to offer one on our website, which I would direct you to, but we didn't cart that page over. But you can go anywhere on the web, just search QR code generator into Google and you'll be able to find some. And you can quote unquote shop around very easily because again, it's a free service to see.
Is there a limit on the number of characters that you can incorporate? Let's say you want to just do a text.
Not that I know of off the top of my head.
Question, Jonathan, so we can
Read the question. The question there was, are there a number of characters, is there a character limitation that you can include in something like the text over here, like the character limit you see on Twitter when you make a tweet? Not that I know of off the top of my head, but again, I would say that one is sort of the outlier. I don't see a ton of people who use the text-based one, but off the top of my head, my answer is no.
I know you saw the red one with Red Cross.
Right.
But typically they're black.
That's because people don't do any design to them. But traditionally, people just leave it black because that's the easiest thing to do.
When you're going, you mentioned all the things that can be included, okay? What I'm getting then is you're gonna have a barcode, a basic barcode, and just keep updating or changing information. If you're gonna add a calendar, you got a special event, or you're gonna have a sale, or you're gonna have, if you're gonna put it in a different place, like you were talking about with the subway or something else, you would have a different barcode, but have the basic information, so you got your fundamentals that you're manipulating, or you're gonna have a new barcode for each one?
A QR code is persistent. So every time you scan, for instance, that QR code on my business card, you will get my contact information every single time. So if you want to change that information, you have to make a new code. The only way that doesn't hold true is if you are directing someone to a web link, because you could change what that web link directs them to. Because, for instance, we direct people to our homepage on that one on the back, and when it went to our old homepage, and then we changed our homepage so it went to what our new homepage design was. But other than that, let's say if you change your phone number, you need to create a new QR code. Does that answer your question?
Basically, but you got all that stuff that you're manipulating, you're gonna change. So if I'm gonna have a sale event, I now have a QR code just for the sale event.
Yes, for that one event, one
Right.
time.
But basically, the information is the same, meaning it's my company name, my phone number, and all that stuff is going to be in all the,
If you put it there, it will be there. You'll have to re-input it every time you make the code. But that information can be there every time you do it.
is it a good idea if you're gonna have a calendar event?
To include that, yes. There's never a reason not to include, your store telephone number if somebody has a question. I'll take one more question if somebody has it, and then we can move on.
At one point, you have a QR code for people to go to a certain page, say, murals for children.
Okay.
And another time, you want to do murals for adult rooms, then you need a new QR code, right? Okay.
They generate the two QR codes, and then they just have two different promotional pieces. Depending on the audience they see, that's the one that they send out. All right, so those are QR codes, and now we'll jump a little bit more into the world of mobile web and mobile apps. They're separated, obviously, between topics, but there's going to be a lot of interplay between the two of them. So mobile web. So again, if I can just see your hands, who here has a website for their business? Now keep your hands up if you have a mobile website for your business. Okay, all right, very, very. I wouldn't feel bad, and you'll find out why in a second. But first of all, why is mobile web important? In this day and age, it's really not about laptops and PCs anymore, in my opinion. What it's really now about, especially in the information age, is these screens. And that's not to say that people are getting rid of these, they're throwing them out, and by the end of the year we're going to be having fires like they used to have with disco records in the 70s and 80s. But what it does mean to say is that this is where the important interactions are going to be taking place. This is where people will be finding out about new products. This is where people will be finding out about new brands. This is where you need to be if you want to generate sales in the coming decade. Now, I said don't feel bad if you don't have a mobile website, because 79% of businesses do not have a mobile website. And when you take out numbers for those large businesses like the Coca-Colas of the world and those other large and medium-sized businesses that have all these incredible features, you wonder what percentage represent business owners like yourself in this room here today. I think everybody's in the same boat, and I think mobile web is where small and medium businesses are going to be going next. Why is mobile web important? Three very important use cases that are all things I've experienced myself, but I've passed them off onto these silhouettes here so that I didn't have to show you my face 3 times. One, I can't find the hours of operation. I can't tell you the number of times I encounter this as a problem in my own life and in the life of friends and colleagues. I want to go to CVS to pick up a prescription, but I'll be darned, I have no idea what time the pharmacy closes, and because I can't figure it out, I don't feel like going there today, I don't feel like going there next time. It's really hard to find out this information I need. At Georgetown, I woke up at 6 a.m. every day, and you would think that after a while, I would remember what time the gym opened. 4 years later, I still have no idea. The important thing to know is that every morning I tried to look that information up. Every morning I threw my phone against the wall because I couldn't find it, and it was incredibly frustrating to go 5, 6, 7 pages deep and not be able to get that. And at that point, that either leaves you with an irritated customer or someone who was a customer and you've now flipped away. Second use case, this thing just takes too long to load. I'll go to Walmart or Amazon instead. When you have someone who's trying to access you via mobile, and let's say they are outside their house or even inside their house, but they're not working on their PC, it's important to provide a solution that's ready here and now. I'll wait 5 seconds, but I'm not going to wait a minute for your page to load. And when that happens, they'll drive to an easier to use solution. I know that within 30 seconds, I can order whatever I'm looking for on Amazon.com. But as much as I might want to use a small local business website to get it done, if it's just not convenient for me to do it and I need to rush and get this done in 60 seconds or less, I'll cart myself over to Amazon or Walmart's page because that's just faster and it's more in tune with my lifestyle. And the third thing is, I forget the name of the company I wanted to look up when my friend told me about them over lunch today, but I couldn't look them up. They don't have a mobile-friendly website. Forget about it. I do that all the time. I always find out about a business on the radio in the car, I'm reading the newspaper, and I'm out getting breakfast in the morning, and I hear about a new venture on the Long Island, business, in the Long Island Business News or in the business section of Newsday. I say, hey, I'd like to find out more information about what they're doing. I go to look them up, and I can't find them. And then I go home, and I never think about them again. That may have been a business I wanted to work with. That may have been a business I wanted to work for. That may have been a business I could have referred clients to. But now I will never, ever think of them again because they didn't even have a simple mobile page that I could go to find out more information. 3 very typical situations I know I've encountered and I know my friends in college.